Hello and welcome to episode number 76 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And the world has turned upside down for your team. You, in all likelihood, are going to tie Yuki. This matchup hasn't quite been decided yet, but it's looking, unless we get an Eduardo Escobar or Bryce Harper double, or if you drive in a couple runs with Pete Alonso, I guess. So it could still flip, but it's in all likelihood going to be a tie. So that's shocking. You changed your name back to the big league Yelichamps out of frustration. We've had another team name change on the podcast. And most shocking of all is you picked up Kyle Freeland. You are the ultimate Kyle Freeland hater more than anyone else. And you streamed him and it worked. I guess it didn't really make a difference, but you're a Kyle Freeland owner, even at the time of recording.
Yeah, I cut Nick Pivetta after I streamed him for today as well, but I have not yet cut Kyle Freeland. Kyle Freeland, the only reason I picked him up, I would not have picked him up today if not for him pitching against the Reds.
Yeah,
you know very well, starting players against the Reds usually works out pretty well. So I also picked up Elias Diaz today because he was going against the Reds, and he hit a double, walked twice, and scored 2 runs. So
it does. Meanwhile, I streamed. I used against the Reds this weekend. I used Sam Hilliard once and Jose Iglesias twice, and that did not work out super well for me. They went a combined 0-4. Let's see here. Where is Iglesias? 0-9. But I did get 3 walks combined from them, so it's not all lost. But yeah, that didn't work out quite as well for me as my late 2020 strategy of streaming guys against the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, God, how are the Reds this bad?
It doesn't make sense.
No, it's like I've watched some Orioles dumpster fires over the years, but at least like I knew like, hey, this is all part of the process. We're rebuilding. I mean, the Reds just.
I mean, I think it's team morale, you know.
Yeah, there has to be no morale in that clubhouse right now. I think every time somebody watches,
there's no morale, but there is Moran.
Moran, oh my god!
For who knows how long.
Bryce Harper has a 3-0 count with 1 out, runner on second. If he walks here, that creates an interesting scenario for me. Nick Castellanos could give me the lead with a home run or just a hit that drives in both Harper and Rhys Hoskins, who is currently on second base.
So this could be interesting. Is there anything specifically that we want to dive into here before we talk about the matchups? Anything else besides the Reds? Please not the Reds.
Well, you mentioned a name change, and I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Out of frustration, I was like, the Giovanni is a Wonderland name is just, it's not working. Let's get a new name in here. I went back to the Yelichamps. I won a championship with them. And Christian Yelichamps' first at bat, right after I changed the name, 2-run home run. He hits a 2-run home run the next day as well. And suddenly, Christian Yelich has more home runs since I've changed my name back to the big league Yelichamps than he did in all of the games before that. So I'm like, maybe this is going to work. And obviously it's not, because it looks like I'm going to tie at the moment. But hey, you never know. I wonder if I change my name very quickly to the big league Castellanos champs. Castellanos will hit a home run for me in his first
Castellanos champs. Yeah, that is a mouthful.
And Harper flew out. Okay. But I am going to be, I can't, Castellanos champs doesn't even fit as an eligible name. I'm going to be the Castellano champ. Let's see if the big league Castellanos champ works. If Castellanos hits a 2-run home run here, I'm keeping that as my name next week. And if he doesn't, I'm back to the Yelichamps. But yeah, it's maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, we'll see as Castellanos comes to the plate here.
We shall see. It'll be interesting. We'll kind of save that matchup for last, or at least until it's settled. We have at least one tie. We have one that's almost certainly going to be a tie. We have one that could have flipped. Certainly, we had one that flipped a couple times in the last day. And let's start with that one. Let's start with Jake's surprising win over Erik. That one. Yeah, Jake's gonna jump to 3-0. One of only two teams that's gonna be 3-0 after this week, and both of those teams have never made the finals. So that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting. What I will say about this matchup, first off, is I feel like you wouldn't have thought that Jake would have won if you were just hearing all the hype about Erik this week and the quality starts. Erik has tied the quality starts record with 10. He had the opportunity to get the 11th, but the Bryce Harper home run, which basically put the matchup out of winning range for me against Yuki, also took Max Scherzer out of quality start range, and therefore Erik is only going to finish with 10 quality starts out of 12 this week. Still fantastic. 2.66 ERA.
Still ties the record.
Yeah, so still ties the record. That was held by you. 94 strikeouts this week. That's a ton. 2 saves, 2 holds, all that, but a great pitching week. The problem with Erik is that he got out hit. And honestly, some of these numbers aren't bad for him. Like the 42 runs, not that bad. 16 doubles, pretty solid. 47 ribbies was one of the higher numbers in the league this week. 6 steals, solid. But he just got outplayed a little bit offensively by Jake. 52 runs, 15 homers, 51 ribbies, 8 steals. All very solid numbers for Jake. The concern I have with both of these teams is kind of the low OBP. Jake won with a 305 OBP. Erik only had a 301 OBP. There were some missed opportunities there. I wonder if, and maybe this is something we could calculate off the air, but Erik benched Jesse Winker today, who got on base 3 times, including a double. The double would have given Erik the wins in doubles, and I wonder if Erik would have started Winker over one of his other outfielders, if that would have been enough to flip OBP.
Honestly, it probably could have. OBP was so close. We were talking before we recorded that it was really just like a couple hits in either direction.
It was close. Definitely a hard loss for Erik. He's still 2-1. I still think his team has performed, pretty solid over the course of the season. They haven't been as good offensively the past 2 weeks as they were in that opening week when he had 100 ribbies, but I'm still pretty confident about this group, and I expect Erik to keep rolling as we move on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake just kind of slugged his way to victory, though. But he put up a 6.35 ERA and a 1.62 WHIP. So really not the best pitching week for him, although he did get 8 saves. But it was really, really the sluggers. I'd say the matchup MVP, and I guess that's something I'm starting to do right now. It's probably Yordan Alvarez. Yordan Alvarez scored 7 runs, drove in 6, hit 3 homers with a 5.17 on base. I also got a great week from Machado. Hunter Renfroe kind of exemplified his team a little bit because he slugged well. He had 3 homers, scored 6 times, but only a 240 on base, which really is kind of in line with a lot of the rest of his hitters. And I know he got a great start from Carlos Rodon. He was not the problem. But guys like Sandy Alcantara and particularly Carlos Carrasco got blown up this week. But overall, I guess I'll ask you this question. You ask me a lot of questions, but I'll ask you a question.
Do you a lot of questions?
Yeah. What do you think of Jake's team? He's going to be 3-0. He'll be He's going to be 3-0. You're not going to be 3-0. Eric's not going to be 3-0. Connor's not going to be 3-0. I will be 3-0. Do you think Jake is a top 4 team as it stands?
That's a good question. I certainly think he has separated himself a little bit from the pack of that 5 to 8 group to the point where I'd say he is solidly above them. What I hesitate in saying is that based off of 3 weeks of baseball, he has kind of gotten that much higher. Now, he very well might be when it's all said and done. You very well could ask me this question like 2 weeks from now, and my answer could be that. I just think 3 weeks is too early, especially when you consider that, spring training was about 3 weeks shorter, roughly, than it usually is. So a lot of these players, just maybe over the past week or so, maybe not even, are just kind of finally reaching that point where they would be up at that full strength where they normally would from a normal spring training. And I wonder if maybe we're going to start to see some shifts there. Maybe some of my players, heat up, maybe some of Eric's players do some things, your players, Connor's players. I just don't know. So I'm hesitant after 3 weeks to overreact or one way or another. But what I will say is that I do think he is pretty solidly the number 5 team, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel about it too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question as well. So congrats on beating me to the punch there. And it's funny. It's like, I feel like if there are a lot of teams Erik could have played this week, and I think he would have just rolled them with the numbers he had, but he just kind of ran into a buzzsaw offensively here. So just not his week. But
yeah,
that just happens sometimes. Speaking of people whose weeks it really wasn't, EBO. EBO had 5 quality starts on their bench. They almost assuredly would have won had they started. Zane, I guess, got busy this week, wasn't setting lineups as well. But still, despite that, only lost 7-5. Not even like the strongest week from Conor, like a 287 OBP, 10 homers, 40 ribbies are decent, like 4 quality starts, 65 Ks, 3 saves, 2 holds, like all like solid, not spectacular, 348 ERA, 10 early win there at the 113 whip. Like, this kind of reminds me a lot of the wins that Conor had last year, where I wasn't like overly impressed, but he just kind of kept racking them up.
Yeah, Connor's very his hitters are slightly below average most of the time, and his pitching is very boomer bust. And this was kind of a rare in-between week for his pitching, I would say. But a lot of the time he'll either put up a 110 ERA or a 580 ERA. So you don't see a lot of weeks like this for Conor, but it's encouraging to see him pull out a win in which he was just kind of okay. And the 46 runs is pretty good. But yeah, if Zane had been setting his lineup and putting in starters, he only used 2 starters this week and didn't use any ad drops.
No, I mean, even just with setting lineups, he didn't even need to use ad drops. He would have won.
This could have gone a lot differently. Yeah, I mean, looking at Conor's team, he got great performances from a lot of his hitters. I would maybe declare matchup MVP to be probably a pitcher. Let's go with Tristan McKenzie. He got a quality start, struck out 13 with a 3.0 ERA, unless you want to veto that as the matchup MVP.
I don't, but it's funny because I feel like Tristan McKenzie perfectly exemplifies Conor's pitching, because I feel like McKenzie's either really on or really off. I'm going to interrupt you here for some breaking news. Pete Alonso is now up with runners on second and third. Like the situation a few innings ago where he had runners in second and third. 2-run single here will win the matchup for me.
Oh, God, here we go. Let's watch.
The last time Alonso got to a 2-0 count before they decided to intentionally walk him. But Pete Alonso...
Oh, my God, I will cackle live on air if he intentionally walks him.
Yeah, they actually might. I would not be surprised, because I'm sure they'd rather face Eduardo Escobar than Pete Alonso. And
Oh no, here's what I want to see. I want to see uh I want to see
they are pitching to Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso hit a 2-run double to tie RBIs, but then I want to see Eduardo Escobar drive in Pete Alonso to make the matchup tied again.
Yeah, please, please. I wish her better things for me, bastard. I'm
Hey,
your
you were the only team better than me last year in the regular season. Uh I gotta have a Napoleon complex against you, at least for now.
Napoleon. Fair. You know what? I feel like I do this to myself though. I mean, especially in the hockey league, but also in the baseball league. I kind of make myself the villain. Um, so I feel like this is just a role I have to embrace. I've kind of built myself up as the villain, and I just kind of have to go with it. Yeah, and Pete Alonso has grounded out.
Pete Alonso has grounded out. So will that do it?
Yes, not quite though, because Eduardo Escobar is about to come up.
Oh,
If
if he hits like a
and
if he hits a double, yeah.
yeah, and Eduardo Escobar double wins this for, and he has a 2-0 count on him right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and Eduardo Escobar double wins this matchup for Yuki. And then I think we can coin a term Escobar. What do you lose in your last at bat? Just like we have Darvish and Paddock.
Man, those are great. I love how Paddock he wasn't the top guy, but he was near the top. And that's that I'm glad that we were right, that it's a thing he does a lot.
Well, I feel like every time he pitched, it happened. Like I swear, like I don't remember any other pitcher getting paddocked as much as Paddock.
For those of you who don't know, getting paddocked is having a leaving a game in the sixth inning, where if you finish the sixth, you'd get a quality start, but you get pulled in the sixth.
Yeah, so 5 1/3 or 5 2/3.
Yeah, which happens to Chris Paddock a lot, but we looked it up with thanks to Play Index. The pitcher who has done this the most since our league has begun is Jake Odorizzi. So maybe it should be getting Odorizzi'd. I don't know. Chris Paddock has been a guy who's been talked about in our league. Jake Odorizzi really hasn't, because he's not currently on a roster right now. So I like the name Paddock.
Who did draft Jake Odorizzi? Let me look this up while we're waiting for this at bat. Jake Odorizzi was drafted by what's now Jake's team in the 30th round. Do you want to guess who they drafted in the 31st round?
I have no clue.
It is a third baseman from Atlanta, Austin Riley.
Hey, not a bad pick.
Not a bad pick at all. Eduardo Escobar has grounded out. It appears that barring the Phillies batting around in the top of the ninth, this matchup will end in a tie. All
right. So are we ready to talk about your matchup then, or do we want to push it off still to?
While we're talking about my matchup, let's talk about my matchup. I tied Yuki. You picked me to win in a close matchup. It certainly was a close matchup, but so close that it ended in a tie and not a W for me. There's a couple of ways I'm going to look at this. I am very frustrated with how this matchup ends. Yuki seems to be my kryptonite. I don't understand it. I've beaten you like 8 of 9 times we've played. I lost to Yuki, I swear, like if not half, like almost half of the times I've played him. Yuki is just incredibly frustrating to play. In fact, you and I did a ranking of our teams who frustrate us the most to play, and Yuki was near the top of my list, as was yours, interestingly enough. But you and I actually had the same list, I think. But anyways, it's again, kind of like last week, I have some positive things I like to take out of this week's matchup. And I thought a lot of my pitchers did very well. I had 7 quality starts and 8 holds this week. My top starters, for the most part, other than Woodruff Dud, all turned in really elite starts. Garrett Cole is finally getting on track. He had 6 shutout innings versus the Royals yesterday. Marcus Stroman, 7 shutout innings today. Max Fried threw a quality start against the Cubs. Aaron Nola threw a quality start against the Mets. So really happy there. The 8 holds kind of getting back to how I was doing in holds last year, where I was really strong there, and more holds than I had combined the first 2 weeks. My offense is a different story. Not terrible, and it's weird. It's like I have like high OBPs, and in fact, I'm leading the league in OBP overall by a pretty decent margin. It's just a lot of the times they are walks, they're singles, and nobody on. Ketel Marte hit a triple today with nobody on base, so that's not driving in anybody. And it's just like I'm just not getting the production with the homers and the RBIs that I need.
You are not, but you know who is getting that production is Erik Hosmer.
Yeah, Erik fucking Hosmer.
Matchup MVP.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody who just like epitomizes Yuki, it is Erik Hosmer. I feel like, and it's just we keep shitting on his performance in a team, and he's just chugging along.
Well, he did face the Reds. He's faced the Reds 6 times this year, and he's not going to face him again. So that kind of explain where his production came from and why it's not going to last. But it's happened already, and it cost you the win.
Well, that and his 490, 439 BABIP. Oh, Erik Hosmer, Yuki's one. Yuki had a terrible offensive day on Saturday. The one good thing that happened to him was that he got a 3-run home run for Erik Hosmer. If you take that 3-run home run away from Erik Hosmer, I win this matchup. So Erik Hosmer clearly knows what he's doing. But like, look, in the big scheme of things, if we're talking about this matchup in week 13, 16, 17, and my team was already doing really solid, and I had my random tie or loss to Yuki, I'd be like, you know what? This sucks. But in the big scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. Everything feels amplified right now because this is week 3 of the season. We don't have a lot to go off of. And I do a terrible job at this, and I know I'm not going to do this, but I'm trying to take a step back and just look at this holistically and just be like, it is still a long season. We still have 17 more weeks to play. Still have a lot of good players. I am going to get Jose Altuve back. I'm going to get some other guys, back from the IL, over the next month or so. So hopefully things work out. The last thing I'll say about my team, though, before I turn it over to you, is, boy, I really feel like the last 4 years I've had that stud offensive player who I feel like has just really been able to carry my team at different times. The first 2 years it was Yelich. Last year it was Tatis. With Tatis hurt, I really do not feel like I have that player right now. And I wonder if that's accounting for some of the downturn in this offensive production. Now, Christian Yelich, as I mentioned before, kind of came on strong at the end of the week. And maybe he's starting to heat up a little bit. I have a lot of guys here who are just like Ketel Marte is batting 146. And Carlos Correa has slumped to start the season, and Joey Votto is, God, I don't even want to. He 129 entering today, which is even lower after an 0-for-4 day. I need some of these guys to pick it up and soon, and I'm hoping with the calendar turning to May, maybe some of these things can turn around. But this was one I felt like I needed to have. I didn't get it. In the big picture, I don't think it's going to mean the biggest steal. But obviously every matchup counts the same. Everyone counts. And this is one I really wish I was able to pull out the W against.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I would say your team looks vulnerable. It really does. And over the past several matchups now, you're 2-3-1 in your last 6 matchups. I mean, you're 1-1-1 to start the year. And you lost to Conor in the semis last year. You lost to Yuki last year also. So this is, I guess, an improvement over your most recent date with Yuki. But yeah, I know you're gonna be fine, but
It's
I
early.
don't know if right now I should be scared of your team.
Do you really want to jinx yourself before you play
I
me?
know, and I'm gonna
One, I would have beaten you this week. I know you would have played me a lot different than you played Daniel. But also, I feel like you when you say stuff like that, it just ends up the jinx train hurts you. You end up
we'll
jinxing
see.
yourself. I'm giving you that warning before you jinx yourself. But yeah, congrats Yuki for continuously being a pain in my ass and tying, and congrats on not starting the season 0-3, which would have really sucked for you. But speaking of your team, why don't we talk about your matchup? You won this matchup 8-4. Solid week for you. Um,
It was 10-2 up until Jake on the last second when Jake McGee kind of got blown up, which flipped ERA and whip in Daniel's favor.
and look, it's funny. My OBP was 50 points higher than you, but I had 18 less ribbies and 6 less home runs than you did. So you're clearly doing something right offensively that I'm not. But this is a pretty solid week for you all around. I mean, other than the OBP probably needing to be a little higher, like I can't really poke too many holes with the week that you had. I mean, this just seemed like a pretty straightforward discussion. You know, Daniel's not really setting his lineups a ton. And you know, they didn't really have a strong offensive week at all. Their pitching was solid, but not enough to beat yours. You had more of the quantity while also maintaining the quality. And great week for you.
Yeah, so this is 2 weeks in a row where I've played a team that had a really great pitching week out of nowhere, at least in terms of rate stats. 264 ERA, 105 whip, although they didn't get a single save or hold. So that's a little bit concerning. They really only, I guess, yeah, just not setting their lineups because only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pitchers went for them at all. Cole Irvin did most of the work, and Adrian Hauser made a great start. But yeah, that's if they had been a little more active this week, I would have been scared. And my OBP, I'm normally an OBP driven team, but that has not been the case the past 2 weeks. And my offense is kind of cratered on Saturdays and Sundays all year, and really all last year, and also in the hockey league. I don't know what the deal is. I can't play on weekends. I guess I don't get it. But that's besides the point because I did hit for power this week. I hit 15 homers. I drove in 51 runs. I'm going to declare my matchup MVP to be, how about Anthony Rizzo? No, Aaron Judge. He had a slightly lower on base, but he hit 5 homers, drove in 11, scored 8 times. With, I guess, honorable mention to Rizzo. But my guys are hitting the ball hard. On top of those guys, though, there's not really a lot to love,
You,
I
you
guess.
you did benefit from the Yankees playing the Orioles at Yankee Stadium. Not that I'm saying that like they wouldn't have hit well regardless, but like it's definitely a nice matchup for them.
Yeah,
Um,
and
I,
I'm I,
I don't really see what the concern is with your team other than the low OBPs you're running, though. I mean, unless you think that eventually with the low OBPs you're running, you're going to see some negative regression in the counting offensive categories, which I could see.
we'll see. But and I guess my OBP was third from the bottom this week, but every OBPs are down around the league, so I shouldn't be too concerned. I'm a little more concerned about Liam Hendricks. He's not been
Yeah.
good, and he's maybe hurt. I don't know. He only pitched once this week, and it was a good outing.
He did have the back issue, I think, that sprung at the end of last week into this week, like back tightness or something like that. And that's something that's a hard injury to deal with.
That's true too.
The Phillies game is over. All matchups are official.
All matchups are locked.
Yeah.
I'm worried because I don't know what I want my team to look like right now. And yeah, and especially I guess with my pitching, I'm one starter lighter, as I'm sure you're going to mention at some point. Um, but I will say if it had been more impactful to the matchup as a whole, I would have declared Walker Buehler to be my MVP because he was lights out. He pitched 14 shutout innings with 15 Ks and an 071 whip. So I don't know what to make of my team right now. I still don't know how many relievers I want to carry right now. I don't know.
I will say,
Oh,
I feel like none of our teams are like really like humming along yet, and I feel like you often reach that point in the season where you're like, okay, like these are my guys, like this is who I'm going to carry. These are going to be my streaming spots. Like I know I'm certainly having a little bit of that. I think a lot of that just takes time. Um,
that's fair.
and like you might hit that. I feel like people hit that at different points in the season, and also injuries can affect that. Like I know I had a lot of injuries early last year, but then I think I hit a point around like June, July where I felt like for the most part like my team was just humming. I was using maybe the same 30 guys plus like 3 or 4 waiver guys I consistently picked up. But I think we'll all get there. But like I feel like you definitely have some questions to figure out. I am a little concerned about your bullpen. For the reasons you did mention. But I think that there's also a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I am 3-0.
Yeah, you are.
I haven't faced a super hard schedule, but I am 3-0, and I just don't feel like I'm humming yet. And that maybe that'll happen soon, maybe it won't. But I either way I'm a game up on Erik and a game and a half up on you, so uh I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody probably feels like they're humming right now. I think even Jake as the other 3-0 team, I'm sure is sitting here right now looking at his pitching, being like, "What the hell happened this week?"
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's humming. I think we'll get there. I'm sure the discussions about our teams are going to be very different in a month. So I'm not concerned. I mean, the last thing I'll mention before we switch over is obviously the Trevor Bauer situation, suspended for 2 years. I think you made the right move to cut him rather than hold on to him. There really was no reason to hold on to him. I'm glad he's finally off your roster. What I do think from a fantasy perspective, you benefit is that you are not playing kind of down a guy anymore. You were basically operating with a 29-man roster. I think it will benefit you. I do still think there are other players that you have that maybe you're going to have to make some decisions on sooner rather than later and kind of figure out their fit offensively, especially. But like, I do think that, overall, the construction you have right now should hopefully serve you for your sake, not for my sake, for your sake. Well, but we have spent a lot of time talking
Yeah, the one thing I want to say about that before I go about the Trevor Bauer thing is that now there are no small shameful parts of me that want him to come back.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe there was a non-zero prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he is good riddance to him. I'm glad.
Good riddance. Fuck Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. But moving on from the piece of shit, why don't we
I think there's potential for a great transition there. I don't know what it is, but which team you're willing to call a piece of shit as part of the transition.
Yeah, you know what? We should just leave everybody guessing. I should talk about a matchup between two teams, be perfectly neutral about it, and I'd be like moving on from that piece of shit. And see which one they're referring to. Oh man, we'll let everybody guess. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, let's talk about the tie, shall we?
Yeah, that was actually what I was
the other
about
time.
to transition into. So you read my mind. This one, I mean, both of these teams, I'd say Alex and Zach especially did not deserve to tie the way they played this week. A 197 ERA, which I believe, and I'll double check this very quickly, led the league this week. Yeah, it did. A very solid 102 whip, 5 quality starts, 76 strikeouts, which was just too short of Anthony's 78, and a couple saves. Offensively was where they really shined. 44 runs, 22 doubles, 12 homers, 55 ribbies. However, Anthony had a nice 375 OBP and 7 steals. That outdid Alex and Zach's very good 346 OBP, especially for the offensive era we seem to be in right now. And I know we talked about the first two, and actually, this is another example of us talking about how small sample sizes can really change our opinions about teams. Anthony's team looked awful the first 2 weeks, and I thought his team looked a lot better. There was a lot of, and I think we alluded to this at the end of our discussion of his matchup last week. Like, there's a lot of players that he owned that were just due for some positive regression. I think Kyle Tucker was a poster child of that, but also like Yasmani Grandal and a couple others.
Xander Bogaerts.
Xander Bogaerts has been hot though.
Like, had he?
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts like the hottest hitter in the AL.
Okay, was he before this week? I guess. Yeah, I guess he was. Yeah, he was great.
You were thinking about. But like Kyle Tucker had a huge week. He's coming off 3 straight multi-hit games now. He's a pretty lengthy hitting streak going on here. He's probably his MVP of the week with 3, 6, 8, 10, 11 ribbies and 3 stolen bases with 2 home runs.
I don't know. I would wager that Kevin Gausman's his MVP of the week. He 2 quality starts, 19 Ks, no walks. That is as good a week as you'll ever have.
And the Ks were essential for him winning. That Kevin Gausman trade, I think we questioned it a little bit at the time, and that trade has really panned out for him nicely. But yeah, like I said, a good example of how not to freak out over a small sample size, because positive or negative regression is going to come if your team has been, just inflated BABIPs, cough, cough, Eric Hosmer. Solid performance by him, solid performance by Alex and Zach. It's a bummer that they both had to tie. I think both of them could have won if they played a lot of other teams, but it was good.
Yeah, both these teams look good. You talked a lot about Anthony, so I'll talk about Alex and Zach. They got a great week from their guy Willy Adames, who hit 4 homers. I wanted him so bad.
Same.
Yeah, Max Kepler also hit 3, and that was really the majority of their offense. Josh Bell had a 481 on base, but there wasn't a ton of offense outside of that. The pitching, though, Logan Gilbert, Greg gives a Logan Gilbert watch after every one of his starts, which I follow with Reaver San Martin ERA watch.
What is Reaver San Martin's ERA?
13 something, 13. Well, it's 1378.
Only because it was like 1064 or something like that going into today. Did you see they option him down to AAA?
Did they? That's finally.
Yeah, good riddance to Reaver San Martin.
Indeed. But yeah, not back to Logan Gilbert. He was tremendous this week. 0.79 ERA. His ERA for the season is 0.64. Additionally, Freddie Peralta made a great start. Joe Ryan pitched 7 shutout innings, 7 one-hit innings. I like Joe Ryan. Have you seen the way his pitches move?
I have. I like Joe Ryan a lot. He is somebody I wish I owned. I can't believe that the Rays gave him up just for half a season of Nelson Cruz. That looks like a steal at the moment for the Twins.
It does. But yeah, that sums up this matchup. Both these teams, especially Alex pitched great. I didn't mention Luzardo, but he got a great start. Yeah, well fought tie by both teams.
Yeah.
Anthony's going to fall to 0-2-1, but his team looks a lot better, as does Alex's team. It's going to be interesting for next week, but we do have one matchup left, and that is Andrew blew out the Deep Sea Devers. Andrew now has a better record than you. He has the same record as Erik and Conor. It's been 3 weeks, but yeah, his team put together a really solid all around week. 18 doubles was, I believe, the highest.
No, because the Benintendies had 22.
22. Wow, that's pretty good. But 54 RBIs was one of the best. 353 on base was one of the better ones as well. They just had a all around solid week. And Ruthvik's team had an all around garbage week at the plate, especially.
Even pitching, like the 8 saves, 4 quality starts, 3 holds are like decent, but a 152 whip. Like I feel like he had a 368 ERA with that, but I feel like with a 152 whip, you would think that ERA would be a little higher. Like maybe he got a little lucky in some of these situations here. And interestingly, and let me double check this, but Andrew did not use his full complement of quality of starts. He only used 10. Ruthvik used his whole 12 to reach those numbers. So great week for Andrew. I know you and I are both really high on Andrew's team. And again, some weeks
I don't think either of us have picked them yet, but
that is true. Andrew did make a comment. No, I picked Andrew to beat Anthony week 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, like we are, other than picking Ruthvik, I think we're both been right. And honestly, like part of the reason I picked Ruthvik this week is because of the 2 start weeks that he had, and that just still wasn't enough because of the offenses. But I, Ruthvik's. So while Andrew's team performed the way we think they can, was the talent that they have, even if that talent might be a little inconsistent right now because they're still trying to find themselves in the majors. Ruthvik did basically the worst case scenario of what we thought his team would be like, in which it hit like garbage and pitched all right. The problem was that he didn't do enough on the pitching side to be able to overcome the hitting. It's a down offensive week or down offensive season for everybody. He did get Acuna back this week. That's huge. Although Haniger did go back on the IL after coming off for all of one at bat. But if Acuna can get going, maybe his offense can take off a little more. But that definitely has to be frustrating for him.
It is. Dylan Carlson went 2 for 25. That's not going to win you matchups. I was thinking about this earlier this week. You know what team I think would match up really well against Ruthvik's team is the Fighting Bellies. I think if they can get a pitching week like they did my week, where they're not getting a ton of volume necessarily, but they're qualifying and they're getting a couple good starts from their guys, and then they'll hit enough to beat a team that doesn't have a great hitting group like Ruthvik's team. I think that's a matchup that could be upset potential, and perhaps later in the season could hurt Ruthvik's playoff chances losing to a team like that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I think the Bellies are going to pull out a couple surprise ones over the course of the season. I think you're right, just like because of the ratios. I think they'll help them. With teams having some bad performances. And yeah, I think that's definitely one team that could beat them. I think my problem with Ruthvik's team is like when Ruthvik's team is having a bad week, it seems to just have a dreadfully bad week. Like my team had a down week this week, but I was still able to pull out a tie, right? Like Ruthvik's bad week, is just not gonna he would have lost pretty much every team in the league.
Yeah, I think so. There's really, with the exception of the 8 saves, there's nothing to like about this week. Really no positives.
Right. And that's what it's like, is like some of these teams, what scares me a little bit about them is that they are high ceiling, but they are a low floor. Like I think Andrews a team like that right now. But I think the difference between a team like Andrews and a team like Ruthvik's is Andrews is a low ceiling team because he has a lot of young players who are trying to find themselves in the majors right now and trying to put it all together. So that low floor gets raised over the course of the next couple of seasons. With a team like Ruthvik, it has a low floor, but I think it also has a relatively low ceiling because of the way that it is constructed. And that's not a combination that you want. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I wasn't encouraged by their week this week.
No way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the matchups from week 3. Week 3 is in the books. Moving on to week 4. And this is a fun one. It's fun because we're playing each other. This is our first matchup against each other since I blew you out, I believe, 10-1-1 late last year. The podcast showdown, as I came up with of a name right now.
I like that. That's not as good as the lemon bread showdown.
Lemon bread. I like Pink House Divided in the hockey league.
I like that one too. That one was also really clever. No, but I am it's always fun playing you. I wish I was playing you not when my team was performing as it is right now, but like regardless, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I hope it's more like our first 8 matchups against each other where I just dominated you as opposed to our last matchup where you just wrecked me. But nonetheless, I'm excited to play you. I'm very excited to get out of this stretch where I play all 3 finalists in Yuki, or all 3 semifinalists other than me in Yuki, because that is like pretty much like the worst case scenario of teams I could play against. For you, this is your first real test. I feel like you had one of the easiest, if not the easiest, schedule to start the season. And as badly as my team is performing right now in a lot of respects, you know, I do think I'm more than capable of beating you. It's going to be fun. I know we're both going to be pulling out our hair the entire week. I think I might lose a couple years off my life just from the stress of this matchup. But
from a week 4 regular season matchup.
I don't know, man. How many years off my life do you think I lost this week just playing Yuki? You saw my chat.
You're gonna. I'm gonna have a 6-5-1 lead on Tuesday, and you're gonna say congrats on your victory.
Well, because that's just what I do. You know, I have to be over dramatic. Yeah, that's my whole thing. That's, I mean, we hate to keep talking about ourselves, but I feel like that is clearly the matchup of the week. I will give one quick shout out to another matchup I find interesting, and that's Jake. Andrew's coming off a very good week. Jake's coming off a huge win against Erik. Can Jake hold up, or can Andrew kind of catch Jake coming off the high of beating Erik and maybe pull off a surprise win? Before we make our picks for next week, let's look at how last week went. Unlike week 2, where Cam and I did very well picking, both of us did not do so well picking this week. We both picked myself to win. I tied. We both picked Cam to win, which was the only win we correctly predicted this week. I picked Alex and Zach to win. You picked Anthony to win. They tied, so we each get a half of a standing point there. We both picked Ruthvik and Nick to win. That didn't work out. I picked EVO to win. You picked them to tie, but Conor won. And we both picked Erik to win, but Jake won. So I finished 1-3-2 on the week to go to 9-7-2. You went 1-2-3 to go to 8-5-5. And if I do the math correctly,
I'm a half game ahead.
Yeah, you are a half game ahead. I'm what becomes 10-8. You become 10.5 and 7.5. So you have taken back over the lead I have from last week. Without further ado, are you ready to make the picks for this week?
I am, and I think with me being the person winning, I should go first, right? To kind of give you.
Yeah. You know what? I think that should be our rule. I think whoever is winning in our pick'em standings should pick first each week.
Okay, cool. I will start out with Anthony versus Conor. I think. This is tricky. I'm gonna call this my tie of the week. You know what?
This is trickier than you would have thought. When I first saw this matchup, I was like, of course, like I got to pick one team, and I'm like, wait, I don't know about that.
Yeah, Anthony's a tiny bit hot coming off of last week, and Connor's a tiny bit cold coming off of last week. I think if you put a gun in my head, I would say Connor, but I think this is more of a tie than any of the other matchups, and I've got a reputation upheld. I've never gone a week without picking a tie. This is the tieiest of them all. I think Erik will beat Daniel and Greg. No real issues. I think EBO gets on the board their first win of the year. I think Andrew gives Jake a run for his money, but ultimately, sorry, Andrew, Jake wins this one. I think Alex and Zach will handle Yuki. They looked really solid this past week. And now it's me versus you. And God, on Thursday, I would have picked myself, but it's a little trickier. And looking at the starts, I don't have a single 2-start pitcher this week, which means I'm going to be streaming. And I just lost Jonathan India, and I lost Chris Bryant in the middle of the week. And you're getting Altuve back.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick against myself. I'm going to pick you.
It's interesting because I believe last year, I want to say both of our matchups you picked yourself to win, or maybe one of the. I have to double check this. I feel like at least once you picked yourself to win against me.
I think maybe once.
I
I think really there's. I think I'm playing better than you are to start the year, but there's just a lot going against me right now in the matchup specifically. A lot that's kind of lining up in your favor.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'll make my picks. I'm gonna pick Erik to beat Daniel and Greg. I think that'll be pretty easy. I'm gonna pick Ruthvik and Nick to beat EBO just because EBO squandered a chance to win this week. I could see him. I don't want to see him squander a chance to win next week, but I don't want to necessarily gamble on them. I'm gonna pick Yuki to lose to Alex and Zach. I saw Yuki's name first and just instinctively said it, but I think Alex and Zach are not going to have the Yuki curse. So I feel like Alex has told me he has a Yuki curse.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he does actually. I think he somehow manages to lose the Yuki more often than not. I'm still going to pick them. They're coming off a really good week that I'm encouraged by. Now these last 3 matchups are a little trickier. I intentionally left them for last. I'm going to pick Conor to beat Anthony. I think you're right that like Anthony is coming off a little bit of a hot week, but like I also just think Conor's team is better. My upset pick of the week, I'm going to pick Andrew to beat Jake.
Ooh.
I feel really good about Andrew's team after last week. I'm a little concerned about Jake's pitching. It's, everything kind of happens on a week to week, basis here. Just because Jake beat Erik this week doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out for him next week, or vice versa. I will also say that the potential 2 starts that Jake gets this coming week concerns me a little bit. He does have Steven Matz, who has been struggling quite a bit. And I think either Carrasco or Rodon may be 2-start guys. But Rodon is going up against the Dodgers, which I don't like. Whereas Andrew gets Gallen going against Miami, Greinke against St. Louis. Jordan Montgomery against Toronto will be hard. But then he also has Kyle Wright against the Mets, German Marquez against Washington, and Ranger Suarez against Texas, who I think all, or at least most of them, I'd have to double check through see who's projected for the end of the week. I think 5 of those 6 guys are going to be 2 starts. So Andrew doesn't even have to start all of them. Andrew could just mix and match with the good matchups. So I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of a pitching advantage there as well. And I've been preparing for this since I barely beat Conor. I'm picking you.
Hey,
Yeah,
we're picking each other,
yeah. I
hedging our
was.
bets.
Yeah, This is a podcast first. I've never picked against myself in a matchup. Um, this is it's a little weird for me to be doing this, but your team's playing better than mine right now. I know that I get Woodruff against Cincinnati. I know that I'm getting Yelich against Cincinnati. I know that Fried was thankfully pushed back a day. So instead of starting today, where he really would have been no use for me, he starts tomorrow and therefore gets a 2-start week. But your team is hot. My team just keeps finding ways to shit the bed. I don't feel good about my team right now. This is probably the worst I've felt about my team since maybe ever, honestly. And
Interesting.
I have never started a season this badly. And I know it's just a 500 record. I know it's 1-1-1, but I have not started a season this badly ever. I've never had a losing record in the league until this year, and let alone a 500 record. So I should have said that the other way around: a 500 record, let alone a losing record. But yeah, I'm picking you. This is really dangerous for me though, because if I lose this week, if I drop to 1-2-1, and you're 4-0, and Eric's 3-1, and Jake is sitting at 4-0 or 3-1, and Conor is maybe sitting up there too at 3-1. I could have an uphill road to climb. I'm not saying I can't make the playoffs or anything, but the path to get a bye or one of those top playoff seeds, it becomes a lot tougher. So this feels like a must-win for me this week.
It really could be. Yeah, imagining you as the 4 or 5 seed, that would be a shock.
Would be a shock, but I mean, hey, Erik was the 3 seed last year, and he just ran wild through the playoffs and won it. It's certainly possible, and I'm sure I'd like to think I'd be a 4 or 5 seed that somebody else would not like to see in the playoffs.
That's true. You could be this year's evil.
I could, except I hope I don't lose in the finals to Andrew.
That'd be a wild season.
That'd be fucking wild, but just making it to the finals would be an improvement over last year. So, yeah, I'm picking you to win. And I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, you and I are only picking 2 of the same matchups, or 2 of the same results for matchups this week. So we are gonna have very different standings next week.
There'll be a shakeup. But yeah, that's everything we had in mind for the pick'ems and for this week. But there is one final thing before we go, and this is a last for the podcast. This is the end of an era, and Sahil, I'll let you explain why.
Yeah, I think I did tease this last week, but this is the last podcast I'll be recording from my apartment in Chapel Hill. I will not be on the podcast next week. I will be graduating. My family will be over. I'll be moving stuff out of here, so I won't be able to be on the podcast on Sunday, but Cam will be on in some capacity. No word yet if he plans on getting a guest co-host or if he plans on doing a podcast by himself.
If you, the listener, want to be the guest co-host, then shoot me a message.
Yeah, definitely shoot Cam a message, or get some.
We'll figure something out. It'll be great.
It'd be fun. Yeah, if you get it up in time for me to drive back from because after I leave Chapel Hill next week, we're going to go down to Charlotte so I can tour some apartments. If you put it up by Tuesday, I'll listen to it on my drive back from Charlotte, because it'll just be me in the car for 7-8 hours. So my parents got to drive their car back. Yeah, it's going to be weird. I've recorded mostly from this desk, occasionally from my couch, for probably 60 some episodes. I recorded last summer in Charlotte, recorded some episodes from my house in Baltimore. I'll be studying for the bar in Baltimore. So that's where you'll be catching me for the most part, although there will be one very special episode, Memorial Day weekend, which we'll tease in a bit. I will not be in Baltimore for that. Yeah, I'm excited. This is weird. We started the podcast here. The very first episode was recorded at this desk. I've sat at this desk watching the fantasy scores a bunch every Sunday. Hey, I'm going to miss it. It's been a pleasure coming to you all from here, but I'm excited to come to you all from Charlotte in a few short months once I have my job and a new apartment. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's sad. It'll be the end of the Roach Wars.
End of the Roach Wars, yes. For those of you who don't know, after not really having issues with cockroaches last year, my neighborhood has had an infestation of cockroaches this year, and boy, there have been Cam has heard quite a bit about them, including one episode where the roach was very nice enough to wait to crawl from out of under my dryer until right after the episode ended, literally right after. And then last week when I found one in my kitchen cabinet, hence I picked up dinner and ate it right before we recorded. So it's been a fun one. But yeah, I am not going to miss the roaches.
All right. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Sahil. Thank you, Sahil's apartment. We're entering, I guess, a new age of the podcast, although I guess it's going to be a little while before you're recording somewhere brand new. But yeah. Hopefully next time we get you on the show, you'll be 1-3-1.
Yeah, Cam and I did talk about this off the air. We were like, this is either really going to be a blessing for Cam that I'm not able to record next week because I win, or Cam's really going to be pissed because he doesn't get to sit here and rub it in my face when I lose. But I'm sure you and I are going to be talking like all day, every day over the next week about every little part of the matchup. And I can't wait for my blow up tomorrow when I say that you have already won the matchup, because what else would I do?
What else would you do? All right. See you next week.
See you next week.
But you never recognize me, babe. I don't live here anymore. Beating like a heart, I'm gonna walk through every doorway I can stop. I need some time, I need control, I need your love. I wanna find out everything I need to know. I'm gonna say everything that I need to say.
You know, it kind of reminds me of this podcast is good. You know, tells
This
you
podcast is good.